morning. This demo today is going to show you how to open a new file, create an artboard of your size that you need, and then it's going to go through a walkthrough of how to create a logo from a sketch all the way to a final vector. I will then show you how to, sometime within the demo, show you how to save your file. And then once we're all done, I'll show you how to save a PDF and export a JPEG for various uses. And you can also export PNGs and things like that. But just in this demo, we're just going to focus on the JPEG and saving the file as a PDF. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have opened up Adobe Illustrator, and if you're having trouble finding it, it should be in your applications folder on the Mac, or if your computer is set up by a university or by a company, or your apps are in a dock, it's going to be the orange icon that has AI on it, and that stands for Adobe Illustrator. So you're going to click on that, and you hopefully will get a screen that looks somewhat like the screen that we're looking at right now. And what we want to do is we want to come over to the left-hand side where it says Create New and click that. And I'm going to zoom in on this window for us. Now I have a bunch of presets or recent document sizes that I have used in the past for various projects, so it comes up. They also have mobile applications, so if you're designing for an iPhone 10 or iPhone 8, 7, or 6, so forth and so forth and so on. iPad Pro, you can click on these and you can get workable artboards. They also have some standard web formats, some standard print formats, so you have your letter and the A4, the legal, and the tabloid. You'll notice also that the measurements are changing. And this is something that you can change in your preferences. But if we're dealing with generally, not so much anymore, but the standard measurement for print is points. The standard measurement for web is pixels. Same with the mobile devices. Film and video going to be pixels because it's on a screen, and art and illustration are going to be in points again. If we come back to my recent, we'll see that my preferences are set up to be inches, and if I wanted to, I could change anything here. So I could do feet in inches, feet, yards, millimeters, centimeters. I encourage anyone who is well versed in the metric system, if they're more comfortable working in the metric system, to always work in the metric system. And I can show you something that's kind of cool, say if we choose centimeters, right? I don't know the metric system. I'm from the US. We don't use it for some weird reason. And I want my width to be 6 inches. All I have to do is type in 6 and then IN, and it's going to convert it over to the centimeters. But for this demonstration, I want to go ahead and use inches. So also with this demonstration, I want to have an artboard. I always tend to work in a square format no matter what. My default is either a 6x6 or an 8x8 inch. I have no idea why. It's just something I'm very comfortable with doing. So for this demo, I want to do a 6-inch by 6-inch artboard, initial artboard. So I want to, in my width, put in 6 inches, and in my height, put in 6 inches again. Now I don't have to type that IN because it's defaulted to inches here. Only at this current point, I want one artboard. I'll show you how to create new artboards in the application. CMYK is fine. You don't need any bleed or anything. And basically, once you've set this up right here, you're good to go. So we're just going to go ahead and zoom out before I hit create so you can see what happens. So I hit create, and I have this white portion which is called my artboard. Now I want to have my rulers up. I think it's always a good idea to have my rulers up. So I can go up to view, and I got to remember where it is in here. And if I can't find it, I'll tell you the shortcut. Okay, so you just come down here almost all the way down to rulers and do show rulers. Now, the keyboard shortcut is Command R on a Mac or Control R on a PC. So if I come back out here and I just hit Command R because I'm on a Mac, it'll come up and it will give me my rulers. Now you'll notice that there's a 0 point. If I zoom in again, there's a 0 point and there's ½ inch on either side. This upper left-hand corner is X and Y 0. So that's just something to keep in mind, and you can change that if you need to. I haven't changed where my 0 for my rulers start in a very long time. I think the last time I may have done it was 2003 or 2004. Around that year would have been the last time I was in Illustrator and messing with where my zeros start on my document. So let me run through just some things that are up on your work in your workspace. And I need to change something real quick. And I'm gonna come over here and go to Essentials. Now I'll zoom in so you can see it. It's usually up in the upper right-hand corner of your window. Ignore the time. And when you get started, you can set it to Essentials. That pretty much gives us everything that we need. But if we go in here and we change this to, say, typography, your panels and what's available to you is going to change. Now, as you work more and more in Illustrator, you'll open up different things that you need. You'll remove different panels that you need. And you'll get to a point where you have a standard set. And what I always recommend folks to do is to come down here and do New Workspace. And that's going to open up this window. I don't know why it's all the way over there. And you can name your workspace. So I named mine with my last name. And if we come back up to this up here, you'll notice that I have one with my last name. I do it on all my computers, no matter what. You know, this is a laptop, so if I'm showing a student of mine something and I'm pulling out other panels that I wouldn't normally have open, I like to be able to switch back to my default. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that opens a few things that Essentials does not have. So if we come over here, though, and look at these different panels that are open, and I'll go back to Essentials so we're all on the same page. I think all it removed was appearance, to be honest. We have our layers. So like if you're familiar with Photoshop, like Photoshop, you can work in layers. I learned Illustrator when there was no layer function, so I very rarely use layers. But I do know from teaching many students that because they're coming from Photoshop normally, they do use layers. So if you would like to use layers, you're more than welcome to do so. Links, and we'll see that we'll come back to the links panel, but this is any photo or any other element that we place into Illustrator will show up in our links panel. And what that means is that by placing a photo, we'll be placing some photos of some sketches in our document here shortly. We are basically saying or telling Illustrator, okay, you're going to want to go to this folder location on my hard drive or on our hard drive, and you're going to look for this file name, and you're going to display it in the Illustrator file. Now, if you have a folder with those images in it and you remove that image folder, say you think you're done with the images and you throw them away, when you open up this Illustrator file, Illustrator's going to say, hey, I can't find this file that was linked to your document. What do you want to do? Do you want to replace it? Do you want me to ignore it? What do you want me to do? So the links panel will show you the old path. Basically, where should that photo be? Or where should that link be? And so that's what the links panel is for. Come down to swatches. We have this default family of swatches here. And for this demo, for our logo from sketch to vector, we're going to be working in black and white, because when you develop out a logo, you want to always make sure that it works and functions in black and white first. No grayscale, no color. Now, sometimes I will work in magenta because, right here, because it is like black to me. It allows me to, especially if I'm working over a black and white sketch, it allows me to see my vector work versus black on black where I can get a little lost. But basically I'm working in one color, and I will, once I'm done, I will convert it over to black and white. This symbol right here actually repeats itself. So it's in the swatches panel, and then it's over here on the far left, down here. No matter where it is, and right there. This is the default black and white. So this, you can, whatever color combination is here, you can always click this little guy and it will always switch you back to the white and the black. So it, as you can see, as I roll over, it's telling us what it is. The solid square, what's white right now, is my fill color. And when it's on top like this, it is what is being edited. So if we come back, I'm going to go back to our swatches. It's going to be the same symbol. It's actually going to change over there when I change it. So if I do select magenta, now I have a magenta fill and a black stroke or a black outline. So I don't want that black outline. So the way I get into a position where I can edit that outline, all I have to do is click on it. And you see how it has moved it to the front. It's in the foreground of this little icon. Now we're editing the stroke. So since I don't want a stroke, I'm going to come down to this null sign. And I'm just going to click on that. And that no sign, basically nothing, none, means that there is no stroke. So since I'm not working with anything that's going to have a stroke, or I might, we'll see, but I don't think I'm going to work with anything with a stroke today. I want to make sure that I click back on my fill color to activate it, so I know that when I change it back to black, I can, there we go. It will be editing that. I'm not getting a random stroke because I forgot to click on my fill color. Okay, so in this panel, in this grouping of panels, so if you can, I don't know if you can see clearly, but there are these collections of panels. That basically means when I click on swatches, I get a tab for color, color guide, and swatches, all in one grouping. And I try to minimize these or group these in a way that makes sense, right? So with my swatches, I also get color. So this is the CMYK breakdown of the colors. Okay, magenta is 0, 97.09, 20.38, and 0. So CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, the key color, or black. It gets K is the true meaning is key, K-E-Y, but it is also the black color. So we will, and when we print something, especially if you've ever worked with a 4-color laser printer, this is the closest example I can give you, you know that it has a cyan, magenta, yellow, and black toner cartridge. So it is laying down those 4 colors to create your full color image. And without getting into too much detail, that's kind of what an offset printing press does. It prints in CMYK, but it prints one color at a time, black being the last color. You also have a color guide, and this will take any color that you have selected and give you shades and tints of that color. Next, we have the transform. So if we had anything drawn out, a rectangle, I switch over to my rectangle tool and just draw that, you can see that the transform gives me all these different measurements. Now, if we look at our XY coordinates, remember I was pointing out on my ruler that my XY 00XY was up in the upper left-hand corner of the artboard. Well, this little symbol right here indicates where these points are referencing from. So right now it's referencing from this top node right here. So if I want to get it back into the upper left-hand corner, I can do that. So now it's up in the upper left-hand corner. Or I could do center. And you can actually see it change there. So we also have a width and a height, a rotation degree, and a skew or shear angle. And then you have some of these other rectangle properties, scale corners, scale strokes. You can check those. Okay. Also in this panel, we have the align function. So if I have two elements, not align them, and I will let you know how I'm going through all these different tools a little later. I can select both of these elements, and I can say I want to align to the bottom. So they call it vertical align, but the little symbol is showing it will align to the bottom. Ooh. Now, okay, so what happened before I undo that? You have this align to, and this is from, I was doing something where I needed this. Well, it's aligning to the artboard. So what I want to do is I want to select this and make sure that it says align to selection. I think align to selection is actually the default. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to undo that. So now that I know that it's going to align to the selection, so it's going to align to those two things, I'm going to align to the bottom, and it's moved to the bottom. If I want to align to the top, I can do that. Center, so forth and so on. If I want to stack these on top of each other, that doesn't really work too well. So let me pull this one out. If we want to align to the right or align to the left. Okay. Then if we have another function of this panel is if I have 3 elements or even 4. Well, we'll do it 3 because it's getting a little hard to see. That I want distributed evenly. So you can see it switched back to align to artboard, and I'm not really sure why it did that, but we'll come back here, we'll select all 3 of those, and we'll do distribute, spacing. And we can distribute horizontally, so I want to do that. So this distance right here is equal between all these 3 options. So I use the align objects and the distribute spacing the most in that panel. You also have the pathfinder, and we're going to work within the shape modes and maybe some of the divide pathfinder extensively when we develop out this logo. So I'm going to wait on the pathfinder panel right at this moment. You also have the character, paragraph, and what's called open type panels. You have your stroke, which consists of a weight, a type of cap, a type of corner, and where your stroke is. Also, you can create a dashed line and have different profiles on your stroke. Transparency. So if you're familiar with the layer styles in Photoshop, this is very similar to that. It doesn't have all of the functions that Photoshop does, but it does have quite a few. And your opacity. Your opacity will say we have that magenta block, right? It's very important to realize that your opacity makes things see-through. So if this is for later on for different projects, but if I want it a lighter pink, you do not go to the opacity and go 80%. Because all that's doing, if I double this up, is it's making the box or the color see-through. If I wanted a tint of this color, I would go into color, and it would have to be a spot color, but I would actually adjust these elements to make a physically lighter color with opacity at 100%. So that's how I would get a lighter color. Do not adjust the opacity, okay? And all of these things get much, much more complicated. So, and then we have a gradient, and the gradient tool works very similar to any other gradient tool. You put your one color that you want to fade to, and the other one that you want to go to, and it will form a gradient in between. And it can have more than 2 colors. I don't use a gradient all that often. And then we have our glyphs panel, and this is something I always have open in all my Adobe software. But this shows me all the characters or the character set of a specific type family. So I have way too many fonts installed on my computer, but I can go to say Open Sans, and I can go through and I can see all the characters. And then if I want one of these characters, I click once to get my type tool, and then say I want this C symbol, right? So I double click once on that, and I get that character. Okay, if I want to add another one, I double click in here, and then I come down and I want the FF symbol for character. I call them symbols a lot. Okay, so that's how you use the glyph panel. Another thing, so I talked about the character and paragraph, and oh no, it doesn't do it. Hold on. Yeah, it does. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to remember, I've been working in InDesign and Illustrator going back and forth, so when I actually sit down and do a demo in one of them, I have to remember what this top control panel looks like. And to get this topmost part, you come in and you go to Window and you go down to Control. I don't think this is on by default. I think this is something that you have to turn on. So any of your panels can be found in or underneath the window menu item, and they're, except for these, they're always in alpha order. There's some that sit on top of other, but the main grouping of them are in alphabetical order right here in the center. So if I want it to go to swatches, or yeah, swatches, boom, it will open up. So if I lose a panel, I can go up to my window panel. Let's go over to the, I think with the tools, I'm going to show you the tools as we work, just so we're not running this demo super long. So we have our workspace, and I know I'm going to be developing more than one concept out of the group that I have to show you. So I want to create a new artboard. So I'm going to actually come down to this symbol right down here in my toolbar, the third from the top, right above the hand, and I'm going to click on that. And you can see that the colors kind of shifted on our screen. Now there's 2 ways to create a new artboard. I can come up to this very top up here and hit this plus button right next to the 2 profiles, you know, portrait and landscape. And that's going to create a brand new one, whatever my setting was in my original document, you know, a 1/4 inch away from the first one. I can also come up and click where it says Artboard 2, and I can move that over. I'm going to hold down, I can not hold down Shift and I can move it, but I like things aligned, so I'm going to move it over. And one of the ways you can copy things is holding down Option on the Mac or Alt on the PC. So if I do that, let me zoom in on this because the tool changes, the appearance of the tool changes. So I'm holding down Option or Alt, and you see the double arrows. That means I'm about to copy it. So as I zoom back out, hold down Option, and I'm going to hold down Shift to keep it. I apologize, it zoomed in there. My magic mouse. And I'm just going to let go. So now I have, zoom out, I have 3 artboards. To get out of this, I just go up and I select my selection tool or hit V on the keyboard. That gives me my black arrow. When I'm on my black arrow, if I hold down spacebar, I get the hand tool and I can move around my workspace here. Now I want to zoom in on this artboard right here. I could click on it and hit Command 1, and that would give me at 100%. Command 0 would fit to the window. So that is Command or Control on a PC, 1, the number 1, puts it at 100%, or Command 0 or Control 0 on a PC will fill my window. Now there's another way. If I'm zoomed way out, and I'm going to move around by holding down spacebar, I can hit the letter Z for zoom, and I can zoom in by marking around my artboard. Once I'm at the magnification I want to be at, I'm just going to hit V to get back to my selection tool. Okay, so let's get some of these sketches that I have for this project. So what we're doing for this is we're creating a personal logo or monogram using our initials. And I'm cheating a little bit because I have a personal logo that I'm very happy with, and I have probably explored every variation of the letter N and the letter M that can be, and I'm a little tired of it. So I don't want to reinvent that wheel. So I took my sister's first and last name, or first and middle name, I'm sorry, and worked with those two letter forms to come up with various ideas. And those two letters are A and W. I brewed a pot of coffee while I was sketching, and I have a little 4-cup coffee maker. So I would say that I did these sketches in the length of time that it would take that coffee maker to brew 2 pots of coffee. So we're looking at about 15 minutes or so. So in that time, to give you an idea about how quickly you should be sketching in your sketchbook, in that time I did 30 variations of ideas. So I'll talk a little bit more about the sketches, but let me get the photos in to Illustrator so we can see those. So I'm going to do this the long way first, and then I'll tell you the keyboard shortcut with the second and third pages. Okay, so if I go up to File, and I come down to Place, and I click Place. Now I'm going to navigate to my files, which are on my desktop. I'm going to click on one, I'm going to hit Place, and it's going to come up with this symbol, and this basically means I can click to drag to size. All right. And I'm going to crop this image real quick to crop some information out if my mouse would respond. And apply. Now, when I do crop this image, if we look back in our links file, this little symbol means it's embedded. It's no longer linked. And I'll show you the difference between what a linked file looks like and an embedded file looks like. But I just wanted to get rid of some information that was at the top of that page. So, File, Place, find your photo. Well, right next to any of these that are in the menus, you'll see a couple of symbols and a letter usually. Well, let me zoom into this. This means if I hold down Shift and Command and the letter P, on the keyboard, I'll be able to grab that function. So I'm pretty sure on the PC, it's Shift Control P. But if you're on a PC, I would double check by going into the File menu and pulling down to Place and checking these symbols right here. Okay. I only say that I'm not sure because sometimes the PC shortcuts for these type things are a little bit different. So I'm going to hit Shift and Command and P, which is going to open up this window again. I'm going to come down. I'm going to grab that second image file, and I'm going to pull down just to size. So if we go back to my links file, or my links panel, I'm sorry, you'll notice that there's a file name. It's a very You know, it was taken by my phone, and I'll talk about that a little bit here too. If I click on this arrow, it's going to show me all the things I need to know. It's going to show me my PPI, which is pixels per inch, which is my resolution. The scale, it's at 6666, but it's at 6.6%. This overall size is a little over a megabyte. When it was created, when it was modified, if it's transparent, and this is my, what that did. That's the location it is, so it opened up Finder. Okay, so the way I get my sketches in, I just take out my camera. I have a Galaxy S10e. I photograph it, I upload it to Google Photos, and then I download it onto my Mac. I'm going to use the spacebar to come back over. I'm going to hit Shift-Command-P again, and I'm going to get that third page of sketches in, just real quick. So we have 3 different, and again, that one shows up in the link menu too. For these, I usually will embed them by cropping them like I did here. So I just don't have to worry about it. So when we embed something, it takes away that link and it physically puts it into the file. Generally makes that file much bigger. But, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you have to embed files. Other times you don't. Adjusting my headphones, I'm sorry. Let's see. So now we have these 3 pages, and you can see, you're like, hey, wait a minute, you said you did 30 some odd sketches, and I did. But I'm also playing with ideas. So this is the very first page. So I just wrote out the letter forms as I know them. And my initial idea was this right here. That the center part of the W would form the A, and maybe that the A is bolder because it's her first name, and the strokes of the W are lighter to give that weight. So that was the first idea. And then I kind of went into this, which is a little vulgar. I don't want to do that. Sometimes I do this. So I'm hitting M, the letter M, to get my rectangle tool. Sometimes if I don't like something, I'll just cover it up. Because that's a little vulgar. This one, playing around with the A and the W in just a different form. And then that kind of led into what's going on here. If I just had what if I just had a waveform? Kind of just a rolling W and a rolling A. And then the same idea, but geometric. And then this kind of Appalachian Trail, it's trying to do what this was doing, but in a geometric form. It's a little less vulgar, but then we come over to this page, and I'm starting to, and I can tell you where I went. I started right here, okay, and I colored this in because this area on the sketch, if I zoom in a little bit for you, this area I found interesting. So I went here. And I can tell you the difference between this sketch and this sketch is that this sketch keeps that gap between the A and the W, but tries to play on a visual reference to keep the A coming down. So this next one just moves that W in and really does complete that. Then I went over to the left and I decided, so what if there were these little kind of serif things on it to make it a little bit more active? Looks very much like Whataburger. And then I went down here and I looked at the squares in my sketchbook, and I said, I wonder if I could get something going on with the A and the W here. That went to this, a thinner A, because really the W is double the width of what an A would be anyhow. And then that kind of went into, what if I started playing with these negative shapes? Like I really like this W right here. Not so much the A, but the W has something. And then, okay, so what if I start playing with even more of a generic idea where I'm just filling in the counters and the negative spaces? And I determined that I like this, but I didn't really think that this top square read as an A at all. So I moved up and I said, okay, what if this bottom part was a triangle, or this top part was a triangle and the bottom part was a triangle? That was the evolution of those sketches. Then I think I did this one next, taking the same idea of filling in the space, but from this sketch. What happens if the W just becomes kind of knocked out like that? And that led to probably this, actually it led to this one next, which was a little wide. I still like it. And this is basically taking this concept and combining it with this idea down here to get here. Okay. And then I want it to see a little bit narrower to kind of match this stuff. This was a very early sketch to see if I wanted to play with cursive at all. Then we came over here and I had this idea of, you know, I think it was here we had the A in the center of the W. Oh, I want to talk a little bit about this sketch. This is a very close to a style I'm developing in a series of letter form, or a series of words, personal project. So I was just playing around with some stuff I have done before with these two letters in that particular style. So we had played with the W, the A, and I thought, okay, what if the W becomes the crossbar of the A? So this formed this kind of almost mountain looking thing, right? So then I decided, okay, let's go back to this concept over here and combine the two and see what we get. So we got this idea. And then I noticed that this shape right here was slightly smaller and I kind of liked that look. So I reduced it even more. And then I was like, well, it looks like mountains already. So maybe we put the counter of the A back in as a moon, keep it small, and go like this. So now we still have the A. I think we're losing the A a little bit there. Then up here, I was like, well, you know, maybe the top half is the moon and we get the W in here and it acts more as a crossbar and stuff like that. So it's devolving from the original idea. I think the purest form is somewhere in between these two. What I do like about this sketch, however, and what I discovered was keeping the triangles all of the lower W all on the same baseline. I like that more than this. This mark would be perfect if my sister was like a hiker or something like that. She's actually an accountant and a stay-at-home mom. So, but this mark has a very unique look. It has high contrast. It looks really, really nice. So I think we're going to develop out one of these. I think I also want to develop out one of these two triangle-based ones, as well as a version of this. So we're going to be doing a lot, but as you will see, we'll work really, really fast. And one of the things I want to do is I don't want to do a typeface. I don't want to take the time. We might do it on this one. However, you know, it's an A and a W, so it's pretty simple. But I don't want to take the time to go through and find the perfect font. I'm just going to create my own. So let's go ahead. I don't think I'm going to do any on this page. I might do this one real quick just to kind of show you how I would actually do that I would find a font and I'd do that one, because a font with two different weights. And we'll do that one first so I can show you real quick. And I'll do that actually with a font that I know that anybody on a Mac will have. You'd probably have to dig a little bit more to find it on a PC. So let's start with those. I'm going to move these sketches just over to my second artboard for right now, and we'll bring them over when we want. So I'm going to get the type tool now. So the type tool is the T on the left-hand toolbar. Okay, you can also just hit the T key. Now, in Illustrator, all you have to do, especially with when you're as long as you're not doing a body of copy, which only in rare circumstances are you actually doing a body of copy in Illustrator, you only need to click once and you get the cursor. I'm gonna wait for the frames to catch up there, but you get the blinking cursor. So I'm going to type in an A. I don't want to type a W yet, and I'm going to get back to my arrow tool. Now you can't hit V because you're in a type tool, so you have to physically go over and select it. So I'm going to blow that up. And then I'm going to use the typeface Helvetica New. I'm just going to type in Helvetica. I spelled it wrong apparently. Helvetica. And I'm going to scroll down. I think I have it. Yeah, I have New. And the reason I want it to use New is I have all these different weights. Now it's not quite the typeface I want. So you look here, the top of the A is squared off. And I don't really want that. So I'm going to look at one other font that I have. And I think this is the exact same way. And then I'm going to look at a font that I know has a pointed top. Except it doesn't. The book does, which will work fine. So I have an A in Futura. And I'm going to hold down Option Shift. Option and then Shift. And sometimes this doesn't do it. Yeah, but if I hold down Option and then drag, it will copy it. Or you can hit Command C or Control C on a PC and Command V as in Victor or Control V on a PC, and it will copy it and it will paste it. Okay. I'm just going to double click on this letter form, select it, and do my W. And the reason I want to make sure that the two are of the same font is because I am going to lay the A over top of the W. So if I take this W, I'm going to come into, and you remember that I said that the character window is over here? Well, it's also up top when you have the type tool. And I actually like that a little bit better because I don't have to go all the way over there. So I'm going to do a light. Then I'm just going to take my A. And since I held down Shift before, it should be pretty close. Now see, I am going to have to do some editing a little bit because the bottom of the W comes down into a point rather than just coming off of the A. Now we could take the W and move it up, but then it's getting this wacky stuff going on here. What I'm going to look at real quick, I want to see the angles of my forward slashes. So those are not what I need. So I'm going to zoom back out and go to my glyphs menu. And I can make the glyphs bigger so we can see them together. Now there's nothing wrong with using the W as a reference, but what I'm looking for is I'm just going to make sure that there are no other glyphs that have that angle that I could possibly use where I don't have to do what I'm about to do. I don't think there is. So what I'm actually going to do is just do a V, capital V. Click off of that. I'm going to take my W, I'm going to delete it. I don't need it. I'm going to grab my V, I'm going to make a copy of it so I have two of them. Go back to the first one, select the first one. And I'm going to go up to Type, and I'm going to come down to Create Outlines. So that's Shift Command O on the Mac and Control Shift O on the PC. What this does, and the reason I kept both of these side by side is I want to show you. I zoom in here, and I'm zooming in by hitting Command plus or Control plus on a PC. I'm going to go into a view. It's Command Y or Control Y. It is called Outline View. And when you have type, you're saying, wait a minute. Both of these are type, and you're correct. But when you have editable type, so I can double click in here and type a A variable. I can change that. I can add more type to it. It's what's called editable, right? When I create outlines, go back to my selection tool by hitting the letter V on the keyboard. When I create outlines, I've created a shape. So if we select this, we select it, and we zoom in, and we don't necessarily have to zoom in like that, but if we zoom in by hitting Command or Control Plus, I'm going to go to my Direct Select tool, which is the letter A or the white arrow tool. I'm going to select this. I select it. You can see the individual points around the letter form creating the shape. So if I wanted to, I could select this point and change the shape of the letter form. I'm gonna go into view and I'm gonna turn off snap to pixel. So if you're grabbing points like that and they tend to be snapping to something, some imaginary, sorry, I hit my mic there, imaginary point on your artboard, you probably have one of these snaps turned on: snap to grid, snap to pixel, snap to point. I have snap to pixel. It's always on by default. I hate it. You can just turn that off, and then it will move freely and independently of whatever imaginary grid there is. So it's important to know that when I am adjusting letter forms, when I have this freedom to change or destroy a letter form, or just change or edit a letter form, I also have the power to destroy it. So letter forms are drawn with a very specific measurement and intent, right? So I often, since I teach art majors, I often will compare it to a piece of art. So you've spent 60 hours doing this painting. You have somebody contacts you to publish said painting in a magazine, and they just ask for it. They give you the specs for an image, and you get that all taken and spend some money to get the work professionally photographed for this purpose. So now not only do you have hours into it, but you also have a little bit more money into it. You send it off to the publisher. You're really excited because you're getting published. And then you get the magazine, and they have taken your portrait format, your formatted painting, or your painting that was in a portrait format, and has smushed it into a landscape. They've destroyed your art. So all that money and all that time and the feeling of being published is gone because your work is misrepresented. Well, typographers when they create their fonts or they create their typefaces, are creating a work of art. So we shouldn't just go and willy-nilly destroy their art form. So starting out, I always encourage my design students to just change them by when we can drag up 2 points. And this can get really hard. So that's why I'm encouraging, and I will show you a little later on, that we can make all of this without having to choose a font at all. I'm going to go back into our preview mode and finish up this one mark. So what I want to do with this is I want to split. I'm going to go back to my selection tool by hitting V. And I'm going to undo that. So I want to go back to, and I'm undoing by hitting Command Z or Control Z on the PC. Does undo. By the way, copy, paste, and undo a new document and save are universal across all, as far as key commands, it's universal across all PC and Mac. So whatever you have learned in, say, Word, it will translate into Adobe Illustrator. Some of the more complex keystrokes that are very specific to Illustrator or Photoshop that you really need to learn. But so what I want to do this before I even go any further. I've probably been working on this project for a half hour. You guys know better than I do because you're watching the demo. I want to save my file. I should have done this 5 minutes in, but I'm going to go up to File, Save. It's going to bring up this window right here. And I'm actually going to go into my Google Drive folder. I'm going to dig a couple folders deep, and I'm going to get into my one of my folders I need to put this in. I'm going to create a new folder and just call it demo files. Hit create. Then I want to select here and just call this EX1 exercise 1 personal dash logo. And I was taught in grad school to use hyphens instead of underscores because you can go in and you can double click on each element and change that. Easier on your professor or on your client or individuals who want to change the file. Underscore ties that entire name together, so when you double click on one thing, it selects all the type before the period. So I want to save this as an Adobe Illustrator file and just hit save. I'm just going to hit OK. All right, so I feel a little bit better. Ooh, sorry about that. Another quick thing to realize is anytime this file isn't saved, so say I move this V a little bit here, it will put an asterisk next to the name. And on a Mac, it turns the red dot into like an eyeball looking thing. So it has a black dot in the middle of the red dot. I'm pretty sure it's universal to asterisk. These two visual indicators mean you have not saved your document. Okay, so let's get into finishing this one and get onto some of the more fun logos. So I am going to take this A, and I'm going to create outline, Shift Command O or Control Shift O on a PC. So I have this. So what I want to do is I want to take this A, I'm copying it, and we can see, and this is something that is not known by a lot of folks, is that visually apart from one another, if these were spaced, this angle and this angle, just on a first glance, work a little zoomed in, look like the same angle. When we actually pull this over, we can see that they're not the same angle. So I'm going to pull this over and I'm going to try to cover up. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to do it. I was going to try just to cover this up completely and do my next step, but the angles are so far off that I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. So that's the right over here. It's actually called the shape tool, generic. And you'll note it's called the rectangle tool. I'm sorry. I call it the shape tool because you'll see this little arrow down in the lower right hand corner. That means I can click and get all these other shapes. Okay. So it is M on the keyboard. So you'll see these letters next to various things in these sub menus. M will get me the rectangle tool, and that's what I've been hitting this whole time. So if I zoom back out, I basically want to draw a rectangle that goes just on the right hand side of that V. So now I'm going to grab this shape and I'm going to hold down Shift Command close bracket on my keyboard, or Shift Control close bracket. That's going to bring that item to the front. If I wanted to do this the long way, I would go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. Okay. Again, everything I'm doing by the keyboard can be done a long way. The long way, what I call the long way, you just become more efficient if you can learn the keyboard strokes. So I need to select both this rectangle and my V. So I can do that a couple ways. I can click up here and drag a marquee. So I'm clicking and holding down the mouse button, and I'm marquee selecting those two items. Or I can click my rectangle, hold down Shift, and then select the V, or the shape of the V. So I told you earlier that we were going to talk about the Pathfinder tool a lot more when we start working on the logos. So I can't zoom in because you won't see unless we move this over here. Let's move that over there. Let's zoom in a little bit. And there's different shape modes, and if you hover over them, they tell you what they do. So I know that the second one is minus front, and that's what I want to do. So I basically want to, by using the rectangle, I'm going to cut off the right-hand side of the V. I'm just going to click minus front, click one button, and I got what I want. So I'm going to come back over, delete the A. That's what I was going to try to do with the A, but it just wasn't going to work. I'm going to come over, and I'm going to bring it to about that point right there. And like I said, I'm zoomed in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I hit the letter Z to get my magnifying glass, and then I'm going to hit the letter A to get to my direct select tool, and I'm going to grab this point right here. And I'm going to drag, I'm going to drag straight down. I'm going to try to keep that angle exactly the same. I want that width. This is why I'm saying you can do all of this with shapes, right? This is a rectangle rotated. That's all it is. So now I have that shape. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm going to select that shape right there, that left-hand side of the V. I'm going to come over to my rotate tool. And there's a little arrow in the lower right-hand corner, which tells me there's another tool in there. And I'll come down. I'm going to do my reflect tool. Whoops. Reflect tool. I'm going to zoom back out. And you can see, actually, I'm going to zoom in again. All the zooming. There's this little guy right here. If I hold down Option, my tool changes. It puts those 4 little dots. And I'm just going to click right there in the center. And so now I have this reflect. And I can reflect it horizontal or vertical. I want it vertical. And it's showing me a preview. So that's my original. That's the copy. Always looks funny. Reverse. It never looks the same. And I'm just going to hit copy. Okay. So that has given me the exact thing. And I could have done that if I come back to my reflect tool. I know the centermost point of the A, and I can do this by clicking on my ruler and dragging straight over. I'm going to pull out a guide. I can click and hold down Option or Alt on a PC and click once. And that means I am reflecting it at that point, the center point. I'm going to hit copy again. And that now my rectangle is in the exact location that I need it in. I'm going to turn off guides by hitting Command semicolon or Control semicolon on the keyboard. I'm going to take my magnifying glass and zoom in, and it wasn't quite center. At least it wasn't quite where I wanted it. And I'm going to adjust it, and I'm going to zoom in. Oop, it zooms to the center of the shape. So this is where you'll want to use your magnifying glass, especially if you want to get to a certain point. And you can zoom, so we're at 3,800%. You can zoom into 16,000%. I'm going to just come here, and basically what I want is I want to make sure that that point is lined up as close as possible. I couldn't align it because it would align to the far right-hand side. And then I'm going to come across. So this is the bottom of the A, the counter of the A. You can kind of see I'm only moving by like 1/8 of an inch. And it would be faster to zoom out, but I'm just holding down spacebar to do this. I'm getting over to this section to make sure this one's aligned. I'm going to come down to that. That looks great zoomed in. Always be sure that it's zoomed in. And so now I'm going to take this, and while the one thing that it's not doing that my original sketch, I just don't want to spend too much more time on this. It doesn't have the points. And if I want it to do that, I would have to bring this one down to a very specific level and zoom in, and I would have to adjust all of these and kind of pull this down. It's just so far over. I'm not sure it would look good. So this is an opportunity to kind of discuss that sometimes our sketches aren't always exact, right? So they may not look the best when we're done. So that looks a little wonky. It looks okay. Don't look bad. But if I undo back, that doesn't look bad either. This is not one of my favorite sketches. So now I have basically what is that sketch. If we do Command Y and go into outline view, you can see that it's a combination of shapes. So I may want to, at some point when I'm going to color, I may want these stripes to be a different color and the A to be another color. So I'm going to keep it in individual shapes. So it's 3 individual shapes. But I'm also going to copy it over. And I want to show you on the Pathfinder tool. And I'm going to do it in Command Y so we can see it together. I'm going to bring it close to the Pathfinder tool. I'm going to hit this one, which is Unite. Okay, and this will make it all one shape. So if you can see now, it's 3 individual shapes. And I'm just going to hit the shape. And now it's all one shape. Okay, and the reason we do this is a clean logo now, and it's ready to be sent out into the world. It's because if I wanted it just one color, I told you I work in magenta sometimes, I can now just make it one color, like magenta. If I had this one, and these are really simple marks, so I don't know if this really will make any sense, but in more complex marks, it makes sense. The idea is basically I only have to select one shape, and here I would have to select all 3 shapes. But this would be the instance where if I was doing color, I might want to play around with color. So I definitely need it in the 3 individual shapes. Now I could go in here and select this one and group them, which is Command or Control G. So now I only have to select 2 things. Ideally, I would want to group the entire logo so I didn't lose my proportions. So to group the entire logo, I'm going to undo that last group. I would select all 3 of my items, go up to Object, and come down to Group. And now it's grouped together so I can select it and move it around. But I do want to make sure that these stay in black because we're working in one color. So this will show you that this is the exact same logo, right? Except it's created. This one's nice and refined and clean and ready to go. This one's still in parts. And there's various reasons. This is just a simplified logo. So that's one logo done. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that image. I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to take my working mark, which is this guy, pull him off to the side. I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to come down and I want to center him in the artboard. So we're going to go back to our align panel. I'm going to pull this guy out so we can just see it. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to do align to artboard. Remember we were aligning to selection before, and this is actually why I had it. I'm going to hit align to center and center horizontally and then center vertically. And now it's centered. Whoops, I did it again. Now it's centered right in the page. So one of the things that we want to make sure is I'm going to come up and I want to change my width and my height, and I can do that right up here. I can also do it in my transform panel over here. But I'm going to do it here, and my widest point I want it to be 3 inches. So I'll come up here and just make 3 inches. So you want to make sure that this little chain link is highlighted, which it is. So unselect is that, it's broken. We want it to be linked together so that when I change just the 3, it automatically adjusts my height. I want it to be about that. Now, the W pulls down and the A pulls up, but since we have 2 V's basically on either side, it's really pulling that logo down. So you may need to go in here, and even though it's exactly in the center, you may need to just nudge them up just ever so slightly on the page so it looks visually center, right? And I actually think it's a little big, so I'm gonna make it just a bit tinier. And you really need to have this at eye level. So my eye is a little bit below the screen, and I'm happy with that. So let's go on to the next one. And we're gonna work on, I think, a version of this logo. All right, so I have my sketch in, and the key to remember working in Illustrator, creating vector art is scalable to any size whatsoever. So it doesn't really matter what size we're working with, just that it's a size that we're kind of comfortable with. The only time that you would want to make sure you're creating a logo or a mark in the same size is if you're creating a collection and you're using that all has to be visually similar. So you want to create them all at the same size so that when they enlarge up, if you have stroke, if you have like this white stroke in the W, but you have different letters and all these different triangles, when you enlarge them, that width needs to stay the same all the way across like 7 or 8 different marks. So for example, I'm doing a collection of 50 icons that are created out of a single weight of a stroke all across all 50 icons. So it's very key when I'm working on that within that file that I create everything at the exact same size. That's kind of mind-bending. That's taking this to a whole new level. So anyway, so I'm going to take this, and I saved while I was talking there by hitting Command S. It's Command S on a Mac or Control S on a PC, just so I got a save in. I'm kind of looking at these, and remember I talked about kind of combining this one, these 3 triangles with the same, what I'm calling a baseline, with the same landscape line instead of these varying ones like that. So I'm going to focus on this one, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see, we may do that one too. I'm going to show you how you can create something super simple like this really quickly, really easily. First thing I want to do is I actually want to lock this image in place. And to do so, it's Command 2 or Control 2. And I believe it's Object Lock Selection. Command 2. Okay? That just means I can't click on it and move it anymore. And I'm going to hit Z to get my magnifying glass, and I'm going to zoom in here really nice and close. I'm going to go over to my swatches, and I want to work in magenta this time and not black. I'm going to select that as my fill color, as you can see here. And I'm working basically with triangles, right? So there's actually 2 ways I can create this logo. So we'll do one way here, and we'll do another way here, just to show you that there are multiple ways to do things. So I'm going to come in to where my rectangle tool is. I'm going to click and hold. I'm going to come down to my polygon tool. I'm going to click once. And this basically gives me a radius and a number of sides. I want 3 sides. I'll click that, and I have my triangle. Again, that's polygon tool, which is underneath the rectangle tool. You click once. I've been losing my mouse all day. Click once. You change the number of sides from whatever the default is to 3. Maybe we want this at 5.5 inch. You click that. And you have your triangle. Okay. I'm going to take this one triangle. I'm just going to go to the topmost corner. And when you roll over the topmost corner here, your arrow changes to this, or whatever tool you're on changes to that. You also see if you go outside, it changes to a rotation. And zoom back out. Move up here. I'm going to go up to that top corner. I'm hold down Shift because I want to scale proportionately. I'm going to get this pretty small. I'm going to design it at this size. Command or Control plus to zoom in. And I know my sketch isn't perfect, so I'm not going to try to make this I'm not going to try to make it perfectly match this. So I'm going to hold down Option and copy this over because I know these 2 should be equal. I'm going to bring one in the center. And I'm going to scale that one down. Just by clicking on the center node and scaling straight down, I'm just holding down Shift here. All right, so we got the bottom pretty much done. I'm going to take this triangle right here. I'm going to hold down Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC, and bring it up. I'm sorry, guys. I have a Magic Mouse, and I think the surface controls are on. And I need to turn them off because I'm messing things up. I probably shouldn't have done it that way. I'm actually going to delete that. So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to select all 3 of these real quick. I'm going to come to my Align panel. Where did I put that? It's not in its place. That back. I'm going to come to my Align panel, and I'm going to distribute these, not on the artboard. The selection, I'm just going to make sure they're distributed so they're equally spaced. And I'm going to take this guy right here, I'm going to copy Command C. I want to do that. Sorry, I'm thinking through my process right here. So Command C, and then I'm going to hit Command F, which is paste in front. So that's Command C or Control C on a PC, and then Command F or Control F, as in Frank, on the PC to paste it, and it has pasted it right on front. And then I'm going to grab the topmost. Well, I'm just going to take this topmost one, and I'm just going to drag it straight up. I'm holding down Shift because I really need to make sure that it's in the exact same position. And then I'm going to just hold down Shift, and I'm going to pull this up. And I think you might, if you're kind of thinking along and you're going, wow, there was an easier way to do it, that was the second way that I was going to show you. So there's that triangle. And then I'm going to take this triangle. I'm going to hold down Option, or I'm holding down Option, and I'm clicking and I'm dragging. I'm going to come up to this right-hand corner. Make sure my tool switches over to the rotation icon, and I'm going to hold down Shift, and holding down Shift rotates it at 45-degree angles. And I'm going to come in here, and I'm actually going to try to get this guy kind of nestled in there and then bring it up. The one thing I don't like about this way of doing it is there's a lot more opportunity for mistakes than there is with the other way. So you're probably thinking, why in the world am I showing you this way? Well, to show you that there are two different ways of doing it. So I just have to bring this up and then try to match up these edges, which is going to be next to impossible. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to line up the left-hand side and scale from the upper left-hand corner here. Just try to get it to match up on those sides. So there's a little bit of stuff that needs to be fixed. Like it's just not lining up. It's being a... So what I should do is I should zoom in about that close and then drag this out down to the same point and then move it up. And now it should be close. So there's that. It's a little bit taller than what I wanted. So we're going to look at the second one over here and see if we can't get it a little bit more proportional. Because you can see with this one, these, and this is something I didn't realize, and is that this is so much smaller than the bottom portion, and maybe that's why in the sketch, I got to trust my sketch, that those were bigger at the bottom. But what I want to do is I'm going to select all three of these, and I'm going to come to my Pathfinder tool. I'm just kind of moving forward, and I'm going to hit Unite. That's going to create one shape. I'm going to take my magnifying tool. I hit Z, the letter Z on the keyboard to get it. I'm going to zoom way in here just to make sure that that is really 1 point. And I don't think it is. I actually think it's more than 1 point, and we can see it. I don't know. I know you can't see it. I'm zoomed all the way in, but let me see if I can control and go in. So can you see how that little thing is a little messy? Well, that means there's more than 1 point, so I can go in here. So I'm going to fix this zoomed in like this so you guys can see. So I'm going to hit the letter P, which switches over to my pen tool. It looks like that by default. I have it as a more exact measurement. I'm going to roll over one of these points. And you see how it brings up the minus? That means it's going to delete that point. And it's going to do so without... I added a point, I think. There are so many points here. All right, so I went in and I deleted all the extra points. So there's 1 point. So we're coming down to 1 point right there. So now I need to zoom out using my space bar. I'm going to come down, maybe zoom out a little bit further. And I'm still in preview or outline mode. All right, we're going to go there, and then we're going to come here. So I hit Command 0 because I was getting a little frustrated with how it just wasn't working. So on this side, we only have 2, so I'm going to hit the P tool again. And just so you guys know out there watching, I have a function turned on, which I think is an accessibility on, at least in the Mac, that allows me to hold down control, the control key on the Mac keyboard to zoom in like this. And I do that because of in these types of demos in my studios that I teach, I need to be able to show like zooming into the menus like you've seen today. In this instance, and I very rarely have run into an instance where I've actually had to use it to edit files. So that one's all cleaned up. So now we're going to come and we're going to select these 3 triangles down here. We're going to hit Unite. We're going to click on the P key again to go to the pen tool. I'm going to zoom in here, and what I want to do is I want to get rid of these extra points. I know they're a little hard to see, but they're here. Let me go back and change my color to like a white. And let's see if I can fit it, because they're easier. So you can see a point there, point here, and a point there. It's basically where the triangles overlapped. Hold down or click on the P key again, and to get those individual white ones, I selected the direct select tool and then selected the shape. And when you do that, or let's see, I actually selected the line. I actually clicked right on the line, and that shows me, that means nothing's really selected. No points are selected. So it shows me these unselected points. So that's how I got there. I'm gonna hit P for pen. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to roll over this point. Now, you don't have to zoom in this far. I'm just doing this for the demo. And take those 2 out. And then I'm going to come over here and do the same here. And you can see it shifted a little bit, and that's fine. And now I'm going to click the I tool. I as in iris, I guess. No, that's not good. It's I in the military vocabulary. I don't know. So anyway, the letter I, it's between the O and the U key. And I'm just gonna, that gets me my eyedropper tool, and I'm just gonna click on the magenta and reselect magenta. Come back to my black tool. So one of the other things that in this specific logo, we had this O coming through it, or this moon shape, if you will. Now, if we want it to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these shapes, and I'm going to hold down Option and Shift and just copy it over, because I'm going to do 2 different logos, 2 different versions. I'm going to come to my Polygon tool and select my Ellipse tool this time, and I'm going to try to get in the center of this. I'm going to go ahead and put the moon version of the logo. I'm going to pull this down. I mean, we have such a big A there. It also looks like a bird feeder. And I'm going to select the circle and this top portion of the mountain, or the A. Oh, I'm about to sneeze. And come over to my Pathfinder tool and do minus front. And now we have that logo, or that version. And then over here, I'm going to take my ellipse tool again, or my circle tool. And I'm going to have to zoom out for this. I'm going to come just at the tippy top of the A, or the triangle shape. I'm going to hold down Option and Shift, and this is going to draw a circle from the center proportionately, so it's a perfect circle. I'm going to come out to about right there. Now I'm going to show you, not quite big enough. I'm going to show you how there's different ways to do this, but I'm going to do this just in a different way than I normally would, so you guys can see what I'm doing here. So we have this circle, and what I want to do is I'm going to create 2 more shapes to cut out of this shape. So I'm going to take this circle, I'm going to hit Command or Control C to copy, and then Command or Control F on the PC to paste in front. I paste it a new circle, and then I'm going to come down to one of these corners. I'm going to hold down Shift and Option, or Shift and Alt on a PC, and I'm going to scale inwards. So what I'm doing is I'm creating that line. And I can already see that the bottom doesn't line up with the top on these, but that's okay. And I'm going to select these two. I'm holding down Shift. I'm going to select the other circle. I'm over to my Pathfinder tool. I'm going to do minus front. And now if I like to change the swatch to just a white, or I change the blue circle to a white, I can do that. And then if I moved this whole thing over onto white, that's what I'm trying to get to. What I was noticing, and when I was doing it, I was noticing that this doesn't align with that, which is bad. But, you know, that would mean that this would have to come up just ever so slightly, I think, to get that up. But that also means that this is no longer the right width. So there's all sorts of problems with doing it this way. Okay, so I'm losing my voice here. It's 5:30 in the morning. So so now I'm going to show you the other way that I think is potentially better to do this, and I think we'll just go with this one because I think it's be easier. Yeah, do it this way. And I'm going to take the corner and I'm just going to bring it down. Well, let's not do easy. Let's do this one. Okay, so I'm going to copy, Command-C or Control-C on a PC, copy, and then Control-F or Command-F, Control-F on the PC, Command-F on the Mac. I'm going to go ahead and change this to a cyan, and I'm going to scale this down slightly here. Trying to think of how I need to do. I'm going to take it from the center point. So a lot of this is definitely, how do I do this? How do I figure this out? So on both of these, see what I need is I need a smaller version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this arrow right here. Go back over here. So remember I told you that was the fill and that was the stroke. So at this moment I need to see the outline. I need to see my sketch underneath. So I want to swap the fill and the stroke. So I actually want a magenta outline and nothing on the fill. I can just click that arrow right there and that does it. I think it's also X. Nope. And then I also want to do the same with this. So what's the Shift X would be the key command. So I don't know that key command. So I want that right there. And somehow I aligned it perfectly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take just the rectangle tool. So we're going to go back up, select that. It's also M on the keyboard. And this one I do want to fill on. I'm going to work in cyan. And that may be a little thick, but we'll see. Get it to I'm trying to match this thickness. And I'm just going to take this. I'm going to hit R for rotate. So sometimes I like to do this. So just like when we reflect it, we can click anywhere down here to move this point of reference to rotate. I'm going to move it down here and I'm going to rotate it on that point. And I'm trying to get about that angle. And I'm eyeballing it. I don't know what I want. Surprise, surprise. I'm just going to extend it out a little bit. Now I do want to reflect this. So I'm going to come up to my rotate tool and come down and get my reflect tool. I don't really care where it is. So I'm just going to hold down Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC right over the center. Make sure it's reflecting it vertically. And I'm just going to hit copy. I'm going to switch over to my selection tool by holding down or hitting V on the keyboard. I'm just going to move this over. And then I also need 2 more of these. So I'm going to take this, hold down Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC. Just move these over like this. And I know they're too long. So we're just going to And then this guy's going to come over here. Okay. And I know you're saying, well, wait a minute. It needs to be one continuous shape. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to try to get these together. I think this is going to work. All right. So I'm going to take this rectangle right here. I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to select this rectangle. Okay. And this is going to seem complicated. There may be a better way to do this, but this is how I've learned how to do it, or this is how I've been doing it for a while. And I'm going to hit this divide under Pathfinder. Divide. Now, it looks like it's done nothing, but I guarantee it's done something. So what you're going to do now is you're going to take your direct select tool, which is the white arrow tool up in the toolbar, or A on the keyboard. I'm actually going to select off of this. And then if we start selecting these, you'll see how it has divided it up into different sections. Well, what this does, it allows us to select it. And you have to have the direct select tool. So you have to have the white arrow tool. Select that little portion right there and delete it. Select that portion and delete it. Now we're going to select that center diamond, hold down Shift, select this leftmost part of the rectangle, and then the rightmost part of the other rectangle. And we're going to come up to Shape Modes and click Unite. And we're just going to work our way down. Now there are some extra points, and you can either do this at the last minute or, at the very end, or while you're working on it. And I'm going to hold down Shift again and select this rectangle along with this new shape. I'm going to hit Divide again. I'm going to hit the letter A on the keyboard. I'll click off. I'm going to come and select this guy. I'm going to hit Delete on the keyboard. Select that one. Hit Delete. I'm going to select the center diamond. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to select this shape right down here. And then the rest of the rectangle here. And I'm going to hit Unite. And I like to take the points out as I go. So I'm going to hit P. And I'm going to hover over. These are really easy to see on my screen. I'm going to hover over the points. I'm just going to take those extra points out. Go back to V. Hit V to get my selection tool. Hold down Shift. And I have to click off of it. This shape was already selected. Hold down Shift. I'm going to select this rectangle right here. I'm going to come over to my Pathfinder. I'm going to hit Divide. The letter A on the keyboard. Click off. Click this shape. Delete on the keyboard. Click that shape. Delete. I'm going to select this diamond. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to select the uppermost part of the leftover rectangle. And then the rest of this shape on the left. And I'm going to click Unite. I'm going to hit the letter P on the keyboard to get the pen tool to take out these points. So now we have this shape, okay? And it is, since I did it, so here's one thing I should have looked at before that I did not look at. And I'm okay with it. Because it's the way I aligned it to the sketch. But if I wanted it to be exact, I should have aligned this rectangle and this rectangle before I started joining them all together. I'm not going to undo it right now. I kind of like let's call them mountains, the different size of the mountains that it's going to create. So that's okay. So what I want to do is I want to grab the W. Now, this W shape that we have created, I'm going to copy it. Command C on a Mac, Control C on a PC. Okay? And it's on my clipboard. And then I'm going to select the blue triangle. I'm going to try to select the blue triangle. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to do minus front. Okay? Now I'm going to take I'm going to hit A on the keyboard. And I'm going to select the bottom shape. Now you're going to delete once, and then you're going to hit delete again. Okay? Now we're going to go and hit Command F or Control F on the PC, and that's going to paste our W right back into place. And we're going to, and what I probably do, I'll move this over at some point. Just if I screw up or I need to use it later. And then I'm going to select my magenta triangle. I had a brain, my brain just died. I'm gonna hit minus front. And I could probably have done this in one step, I think. Because I think what I could have done, and now we have the bottom part. I could have gone in, and I'm gonna double click into this compound path and just select the top portion and copy it, Command C. Click out, and then Command F or Control F on a PC. I think I could have just grabbed this top portion and just hold down Shift and get the same shit. Nope. Okay, so no, we did it right. So I'm just going to delete that. So now we have our two shapes, and all we have to do is fill. So that last part was I took the top of the magenta one and thought I could scale it down and get the blue one, and it ended up not working that way. Probably with a little bit more time and a little bit more tweaking, I could have gotten it that way, but mess with it. I'm going to select this bottom one, and I'm going to go back to my fill stroke, and I'm going to swap them. And I'm going to do the same for the cyan one. And then I'm going to select both and make them black. And then I'm going to pull this one over. Okay. So there's 3 from the same sketch. One looks a lot better. A little bit more lined up. Still something wonky going on with it. Just with its alignment tools and stuff like that. The whole triangle. It would have been better to do it this way with from one triangle. And then I have this part over here. So I'm going to use this one. I think I like that one the best. I'm going to keep these off to the side. And to unlock this, I'm going to hold down Command Option 2 or Control Alt 2 on a PC. That unlocks it. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to select, marquee select that. Hit Command G to group it. V. I'll go to my Align panel. And I'm going to make sure it's aligned to Artboard. And I'm going to align center and center. You'll know quickly if your mark is not grouped, because all your pieces will go to the center. I'm going to select this one because I'm presenting them together as options. And I'm going to copy the width, which is 2.6716. Copy that. And then come back here and make sure the width is exactly the same. And then I'll adjust it from there. So if I zoom back out, there's that. This one pulls up a little bit, so we have 2. All right, so let's do one really quick third one. I did one with type already. Let me show you how I really want to do one of these. I'm gonna do 2 really quick. I know this demo is running over an hour, but I want to show you how you can do type without using a font one, and then I want to really quickly do that. So I'm gonna hit Command 2, Control 2 on a PC to lock that. I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna do these really, really quickly. So take my polygon tool, click once, do 3 sides. This is gonna be really big. I'm gonna take my direct select tool this time, and I'm gonna click on the topmost point to bring this down. I'm gonna hold down Shift so it gets centered. See if that's right. I'm gonna move that to a smaller size. That's not quite tall enough. Centered. Take Command T for transform. That's the wrong piece of software. Okay. Now for this one, I'm going to hit M on the keyboard, which gets me back to the rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a square. And then I'm going to draw a longer rectangle. I'm going to go to the corner, hold down Shift and rotate it. That will rotate it by 45 degrees. Come over and try to get it. I know it's really hard to see. This is why I don't do black that often. Zoom in. And you can zoom in really, really close, and that's usually the best. I want to get this right on these corners. I'm going to select both of those. I'm going to go to I'm holding down Shift to select both of those, go to my Pathfinder and do minus front. Now I have these two shapes here, and the change I want it to make, I can actually do over, just making sure I didn't move that. I can do over here. So that's kind of cool, but what I want it to do is I want it to take my line tool. I think, let's do rectangle. I don't know. Either or. Just do a line and next the relatively thin line. That's gonna have to. I get quiet when I work. Normally I would have music on, something playing over my Amazon Alexa. But copyright won't let me do that on YouTube. So, and this is going up, list it. So come down here and make sure these are lined up. And this is what, you know, if I ever talk about, you know, playing around in Illustrator, this is what I mean. Let me go to my align tool, make sure it's aligned to selection, align it down to the bottom. Is just, you know, I saw this in the sketch and I was like, ooh, I got to do that. And so I'm doing it. I just thought the contrast of the thin lines would be nice. You'd even take this other line right here, and I might be making the logo a little bit too complicated at this point. And I just took that rectangle and rotated it 45 degrees. Get it same angle. You know, that's getting wonky. That's getting a little bit too much. So, you know, you have to try, right? So what if I bring this down and I delete that one? You know, and then I come here and I come down and I get the original sketch. Or maybe I take this one and I bring it over and I zoom in on this. My voice is getting really, really scratchy, guys. And I thicken that up or something in a really Bauhausian feel. It's warm in my apartment. I would have to do a little bit more with that. But, you know, what happens there, that's another option. So you're seeing really quickly where in very, you know, probably under a minute, maybe under 5 minutes, I have 5 different versions of that logo. I don't know that any of them work real well. I'm leaning towards this one or even this one in some way, shape, or form. What if like that makes sense? So you can really start playing with them and start to get something going on. That does not make sense. But I'm just going to drag these off to the side. I want to see what that one looked like. You know, I'm kind of liking this one over here. You can start to see that W really, really well. And I'm wondering if there would be something that I could do here that wouldn't be as overwhelming. What happens if I did that? See, so I'm still playing. I'm gonna bring this one back over. So what if I did that? That's actually kind of cool. And then I come back up here. I'm gonna take this guy. I'm holding down Option, by the way. Just kind of running through all this to copy these things. What if I do this? I'm doing these. So if I'm doing this down and dirty and I don't want to use the Pathfinder tool, I can just make this white until I go in and I make sure all of these are exactly the right width and everything. I mean, that's down and dirty. That's working as well. I like this right here. I like what's going on here. You know, this is okay, but it's starting to, you're starting to lose that counter. Like, wonder if, like, if I drag, but And this is kind of going back to what we had before, but I feel like this would have to drop down. I also talk to myself a lot when I do. You know, something like that, maybe? That really? I guess it is. That's why it's. Like that. I don't know. I'm really digging this one down here. So, maybe we'll just leave that. And we'll just pull this one over here. I think that's just too complicated. And then to kind of show you here how I do this, it's very similar to how we created the W over on the other side. So I'm just going to take I'm going to work in magenta, and I'm just going to take a rectangle of a width, a sizable width, a good width. Okay. And this is definitely thicker than what my sketch is, but I'd rather have it a little bit thicker than too narrow. And I'm just going to come here. I'm going to hit rotate, R tool. Sometimes I like to do that other than going up to the corner because it gives me a little bit more control with it. I get that right there. I'm going to go and get my reflect tool. Hold down Option over the center. Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC. Hit copy. Hit V to get back to my selection tool. So this is perfect, and this is my sketch. So I'm trying to decide whether I want to follow my sketch or follow. I want to follow my heart or follow that. And I also need to move this and see. Do I really want that point up there? That's a really point. Okay, one thing I did not do. Before I rotate it, I need a vertical. I need this. I'm gonna copy that, Command C. So I did an undo up until this point. I'm gonna do a redo to that point, and then I'm gonna paste Command V, which gets me this vertical, which I need. So anytime I start from this, I need to copy that because I need to rotate for a crossbar. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna bring this out there. I'm gonna take this guy, I'm gonna hold down Option and bring him down. Whoops. Bring him down to about him, her, it. There. Or them, I'm sorry, not it. Rude. There. So what that's gonna do is eventually it's gonna crop this guy. Designing very non-destructively right now, so we'll actually move it over to a white background or delete the sketch here in a second. So these two need to be exactly the same length, so I'm just going to do that. Then this over here, I think on my sketch I did there. Turn this white again. I'm holding that. You're like, how is he copying all that stuff? Well, I'm just holding down Option to copy it, and then here this shortcut is Shift Command close bracket to bring it to the front. These might be easier. You go to Object, Arrange, and they're all right here. Basically what I'm doing is, since I learned how to design in Illustrator without layers, I'm moving things up and down throughout this list. So here is my one layer, right? So I'm basically moving, if we undo that, I'm moving this rectangle right here up all the way up to the top with one key stroke. So if you work on layers, you can always move stuff up and down, but I just find it easier to do it this way. So the W is going to be the exact same angle, and I may regret that, but who knows. And I try to keep this because I know that's going to be there as well. I'm remembering my sketch. I'm doing all this from memory, so And then I'm going to bring this guy over. And we are going to do the exact same thing that we did with the other W with this disaster of shapes. So I'm going to select all of this, and I'm actually going to copy this because I want to keep this in some respect. And I'm going to paste it down here. So I just moved down to a spot. So this is actually the bottom of my letter. So what I want to do is I want to take this rectangle, move it down so it covers up that, and then bring it over and bring it down and make it white. And then make sure it's on the very top. And since these end in a hard top, in other words, a squared off top, I'm going to do the same for that. So now this is what kind of this logo is going to look like. Okay. So now we got to go in and start cleaning it up. And that's why we're actually going to have this is really important that it is all on the same plane. And this is actually in the wrong spot right here. It needs to be up right there. So this is actually going to be white. It needs to move up ever so slightly. And this guy needs to go all the way up. And this needs to go all the way up so we can get those sections that we don't need. Right? And you can kind of see a problem that we're having here because of where this comes over. Really, this should be here. Right? Do you see how this rectangle goes up and it gives it that shape? And the same on this side. So if we move this down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this back down. My sketch was probably right. Move this back down as well. And then also move my crossbar down. If I need to get this, I should have selected this. And right now, smart guides from me aren't on. You want to see that? View, guides. Oh, smart guides right here. If I turn that on, you get a lot of these outlines and stuff, which I usually have them off, but should lock to that other shape. And I like that. That works. This is a little wide, but we'll figure it out. That's not going to matter. All right, so we have the our basic letter form here. We can see where that is as well. So now I'm going to turn off smart guides. I don't need them anymore. They're another function that causes things to lock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by, we can also see that that wasn't aligned correctly. I'm going to start by, if we look here, that's this logo. And you can see that this need to align to that. So I'm going to come to my align tool and I'm just going to align to selection. Always check that, especially when you're doing center aligns. Whoopsie. And we want to, now if I wanted to do this, I would group these two items. Command G, select them both and hit Command G or Control G on a PC. And then I also undid the align to selection. Now see, it's saying it's aligned, so I usually will zoom in and say, no way in hell that's aligned to this. Maybe I didn't select them. See, maybe that's what it was. Yeah, I didn't select both of them. So now I know that's aligned. We should be good to go. I'm going to come in, I'm going to ungroup these guys because I don't need that. And I want to make sure that this one and this one, this one, hard to select things in this view, are aligned to the bottom. So there's some issues, but we'll fix those here. So I'm going to select this guy and, well, I'm going to select, not that one. I'm going to select this guy. When in doubt, zoom in. I need that really aligned to there. So I'm going to select this white rectangle and this large magenta rectangle, and I'm going to go to my Pathfinder, and the majority of what we're going to use is minus front, divide, and unite. Those three right there. And I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to take my direct select tool, hit A on the keyboard, select this bottom half, copy, and then paste in front. So Command C, Control C on a PC, Command F, Control F on a PC. You can see that brought that guy up. Then I'm going to take this guy right here, and this white rectangle right here, minus front. Then I'm going to take this rectangle here and this guy, and I'm going to divide. I'm going to hit A on the keyboard, select off of it, select. Okay, so what this means when this happens, remember I zoomed way in to make sure that white was right up there. It means that, I'll actually undo this. It means that this rectangle, if we look at it in outline view, is not aligned to the vertical rectangle. So I gotta go in here and zoom as working with. All right, and I gotta move this up. What I normally do is I move it up, and then I come back and I select it. I'll hold down Shift because I'm not doing that. And I want these two lines to be exact. They could be a little off. Oh, that's pretty good. I don't know how else to do it. Now I hit Command 0. That's why I zoomed way out. Hit Command Y again. Hold down A, or hit A. Hold down Shift. Select the two things. Do divide. Click off. And see, now I have the two individual marks. So I'm going to select, make sure. I'm going to marquee select around those. I'm going to unselect that white guy. And select all three of those parts. Hit Unite. And now I have a unique shape. Hit the P tool to take out these extra points. And this is just me cleaning the shape up. Like I said, it can be done at the very end. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Now we have these two individual shapes. Dang it. Ticking me off, man. So I'm going to zoom way in. Whoops. I'm going to zoom in really close and try to get that as close as possible. Zoom out. I'm going to take this white rectangle and this magenta rectangle. I'm going to do minus front. Get this unique shape. It's still covering up that bottom part. That's just annoying me. Then I'm going to take this guy and this guy. You know what? I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take this rectangle. I'm going to copy, and this is very key. Just copy it. Command C. I'm going to select this vertical rectangle right here. I'm going to do minus front. Okay, and it shows it. So we're going to hit Command F or Control F on a PC just to put it back. And then I'm going to take this shape and this shape, and I'm going to hit Unite. And you can see that there is a little bit of a problem there. But I'm going to hit Command C just because I moved that white rectangle. So I'm copying that. So I'm going to select this new shape I created and the white rectangle and do minus front, and then Command F to make sure I get it in front because I need it later. I also have this guy up top that I need to take. I'm going to Command C this or Control C on a PC, select this one shape that I'm working with and hit minus front. I'm also going to hit Command F again and select this shape and do minus front. Okay, now we have this shape, or this side of the A and then this side of the A, and select both of those. Hit Unite. Now we have this one whole shape, and we'll go in and clean it up here in a little bit. So we'll come back down here. We'll grab this rectangle. We'll hit a Command C or Control C on a PC. Select that one. Do minus front. Command F or Control F on a PC. Select this one. You'll notice that this came to the forward. I'm not really too worried about that right now. And we're just going to go through Command, paste in front, and move all these things. Do here is we'll bring this up. Command C. This one, minus front, Command F. Paste in front. Control F on a PC. Do it one more time. Bring it to the front. Shift Command close bracket. Shift Control close bracket on a PC. Select this one. Minus front. Select this guy. And then this guy by holding down Shift. Minus front. I'm gonna take these two. Go to my align. And then align them to the top. They're all lined up. And basically I can go and select all of these at once. Go to my Pathfinder and hit Unite. And I'm going to hit the P tool, hold down Command to select, get to my selection tool. I'm going to take all these points out. Okay, so in this instance, there is a weird instance where when you use the Unite tool and you have a closed shape, it actually puts two shapes in there, and you have to go through with a direct select tool and take one of the shapes out and delete it, and then go in and select the other one and copy it, paste it in front, and then knock it out of the shape again. I don't know why it does that, but it does do that. I want to say that one thing, like, okay, so I often do this. I often check, see, like this thing is supposed to be the exact same width. I just want to bring it in so it is. Length. So one of the things that I want to mention about my sketches is when I'm sketching, I'm sketching so quickly. I think we're done with these, but I'm sketching so quickly that I'm not thinking about what anything looks like. I'm not horribly concerned about if it looks like another logo or anything like that, because I'm trying to get ideas out, and I'm just trying to like knock things out. We'll worry about that later. The one thing I will say about this is the proportions are way off. And I should have caught it here before we went through that process of cleaning it all up. It may get better, bigger, but remember the logos have to work not only at this size, but it also has to work at a much smaller size. So the A, like the crossbar of the A needs to be higher. And the W needs to be higher. So all this element right here, let me zoom in on that. This element, this vertical or horizontal, I'm sorry. This horizontal right here really needs to be more like up there. And then this part of the W needs to come up, and it all needs to just come up a little bit higher to have a balance. It's below center, and I just don't, for me, I don't like it. So it needs something. These shapes are a little weird. They got a little thick in comparison to this stroke, which happens sometimes. And I think it was because I was rushing that I just didn't pay attention to it. But you can see how this stroke, I think we can always bring this over. The same width. It always amazes me. It looks too thick to me. So I might go in there and that's the most important thing. And I like these two are definitely not joining in the right spot. But you always want things to look visually correct. So even though we matched this directly to my sketch, or I matched it directly to the sketch, I didn't take that necessary time to really make sure that it visually looked correct. So that's why it looks a little weird. Like that W is way too small. I'm actually going to move that one off to the side, but hopefully that showed you. I know I did that really quickly. Hopefully we spent some time on this one. I haven't saved this in a while. I need to do that. Let's save it. Hopefully it showed you how you can create letter forms without too much issues. Now I'm of course doing all these rectangles, and somebody's going to want to do a circle, and that's fine. To kind of give you an idea, if I group these and I bring these back over, you can do the same thing with circles. You can grab the ellipse tool and go here, copy, paste in front, come down, select both of these. Another way to do them, and probably a better way to do them, is with the outline, because then you can make sure that this width is the same. Draw down your little tail of the A. And remember, you would want to copy that before you join these two, and then we can join them, and now you have A. It's a little off, and I also might want to just pull this up. Visually correct. A D. Do that. You know, and this is where, you know, you're going to start. I want, you know, it's encourage you to play around with this, but you might often find yourself getting stuck in your aesthetic. Like, a lot of this stuff is what I normally do. So, I'm definitely getting stuck in that. And as I play around here, you know, I'm literally thinking of ideas as I go. You know, what if I could create, instead of maybe that being there, it coming down here. Nope, that doesn't work. What if I could create the W in this shape just by, you know, here's my experience with M's. So, you know, what would it take to create a W out of that negative shape? Is it bringing this down here, and then the bottom, lining these to the bottom, and then bringing this over like that, getting rid of that. That work? I just bring, oops. I'm really tired, guys. I need to wrap this up. But you know, I'm always thinking of how can I take this to the next level? How can I just play around with it? You know, I now have this. I guess I need one of these. That's the famous question. What the hell am I doing? Now does this start to become a W here? Actually, it does. Do that. You know, so what happens now? You know, here we go. Here's a. This is kind of cool, right? Here's your A. Here's your W. It's like a combination of things. Kind of groovy, actually. And that's just, you know, that's just showing you guys, trying to show you that you can do round letter forms, right? And you just come up with another idea. It's just, you know, all about playing at that point. And then you can play with the links. You know, that's actually kind of cool right there. There's some things that need to be fixed, like the tops of these need to go up a little bit, and the W needs to be adjusted. But, you know, if we take this one and we group it, much as I like that one, here's my third option. So I take this and I go ahead and I group it. Not cleaned up. I don't really care about that at the moment. Take this width. Copy. I'm doing this. I took the wrong measurement. Copy. So the X and Y coordinates are right next to your width and height. So make sure you're actually pulling the width from your other logos and not your Y coordinate, is what I just did. And that's a little bit of exhaustion and a little bit of not paying attention, which comes with exhaustion. You guys are thinking, well, Nick, you know, it is been 2 hours since you started. So now if I went and I clean this up, and usually this is what I do anyhow, and I take all these extra bits, get them off to one side. Now this is where all the logos came from. And like, I do like it. Looks like something, that's the only problem. Copy that one, delete it. We have a couple more things that I need to run through, and then we're done. I'm going to take this. I'm just going to get rid of that sketch. So now we have the 3 logos, right? All right. So I have my 3 items. And one of the things I need to do is I need to save this as a PDF. And so I just saved again. I'm going to come up to File. I'm going to come down to Save a Copy. And I don't ever know the key commands. I'm going to take the word copy out of the name. Click the right key. And then I'm going to do Adobe PDF. Use artboards, and I want all of them. Come down, I'm gonna hit save. And I had chosen my logo. Then I want to come in, and what I normally use is high quality print. And I don't change anything. Okay? And this is like if I was gonna send this off to the client. And then you just click save PDF, and it saves it in the location. Now I want JPEGs of these. Say I want to post them to a website to show to a client instead of sending the email off. This is really bothering me, but oh well. I'm gonna go down to File, Export as. I'm gonna come in here, and you see it's PNG already. Come in to the format. Come down to JPEG. Use artboards all. Hit export. This is very, very important. Since our working space, our working space is in CMYK, it's going to try to save this JPEG as a CMYK JPEG. JPEGs should not be CMYK. They will not view properly on the web. So we need to change the color model to RGB. Keep it at high, quality high or maximum, and just click OK. All right, and I think at some point so if I export as and I want to save it in a different location, you just navigate through here, but it's putting all that into the folder that I want it. And at that point, I just save again, make sure my document's saved, and I close. And so that's a little run through. You can see that like I said, it took about 2 hours to do that, plus about 15 minutes of sketches. We created 2 and even more logos that were sketched. We saw how you can evolve an idea from a sketch through just playing around on a computer. We can see how we screwed up with this mark right here. With our proportions, we want to make sure that we want to take the time and not rush an idea, especially when we go from this, what appears to be a mess of rectangles, before we get to this nice reduced logo. We want to make sure our proportions are right here, and the easiest way to do that is to put it on a white background and view it before. We played around with some different ways to create this type of mark. We started from a font here, and we dissected the font, and we manipulated the font to get a logo that looked like what we sketched out. And then finally we just experimented playing around with shapes to I was hoping to show you guys how to, since all these are very geometric, very triangle, that you could do the same with a circle. And we kind of came up with another cool funky logo here as well. So hopefully you found this demo helpful. I know it's long, but if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you for watching.